Salah, of course, was an absolute star in that 3-0 victory against Manchester United at Old Trafford, which is already people questioning Ten Hag's future. Time to find that one, Erik, of course, regarding that quote about Harry Potter. Erik's our man. New United Chiefs, Berrada and Ashford back Ten Hag. Getting backed in the morning. It is the wonderful vote of confidence, which actually came before the Liverpool game. Do we still believe in Erik? Absolutely. We think Erik is the right coach for us, and we're fully backing him. Would you be on the same page as those Manchester United executives, Maka?
Well, I think it's very ominous for Erik Ten Hag, isn't it? I think we all agree that. We've spoken about this before, the fact that they went to a number of managers who didn't seem the right choice at the right time. You know, they've changed every single position seemingly within the club, apart from the manager. And then the manager loses 2 out the first 3. The pressure is ramped right back up. I don't like people just sacking managers willy-nilly. But once a new ownership structure comes in, a new sporting director, a new football director, a new, CEO comes in, and they've changed every position with any clout, and the season started like this, and the same people seem to be moaning, and they had reservations over him at the end of the season for a number of months. They just couldn't find the right manager. I think it's very ominous for Erik Ten Hag, I really do.
Are you surprised, Maka, of his rhetoric around the game, obviously bringing up the fact that they won more trophies than Liverpool afterwards, once again banging on about those 2 trophy victories in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup?
No, because I think some of the social media sites over here in England have been quite brutal, to be very honest. I don't really like it. I don't like listening to them, just shouting stuff for clickbait. So, and I think some of the journalists have jumped on that bandwagon and have asked some derogatory questions, have asked some arrogant questions when they don't know the full story of what happens inside the building and what's happening with injuries, etc., and new signings coming in. I agree that they should ask probing questions. I agree that they should ask questions that make him a bit prickly. Without a doubt, that's his job and he has to answer them. But I think he was fighting his corner and he came out particularly to one journalist who was asking questions, and that's why he gave that answer. And I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem with him sticking up for himself and sticking up for his team. But, as we know, certainly in England, I think it's sometimes it goes beyond the scope really of what you can get away with in press conferences and on social media.
We learned on Monday that's Craig's best friend, that journalist, Maka, so be careful.
Not my best friend. As you well know, I don't have any friends. Just acquaintances. And sometimes drinking partners that take me to bad
Whether they like it or not.
That take me to bad places.
Oh, yeah.
And then leave me with Stevie to get home in an Uber. That's a different story. Why am I always get left with him and to get home in an Uber?
Well, because you live closer with each other, don't you?
Why are executives all making statements?
Well, they're asked a question.
Well,
do you support Ten Hag? What else is he going to say?
Why are they getting asked questions, or why are they putting themselves in position? Right. I mean, Ten Hag has to answer questions. He's got media duties, before the game, after the game. Then he has to go to press conferences. You don't have to, as an executive, put your head above the parapet all the time, particularly when it's such a powder keg situation as it has been at Old Trafford. And you haven't started the season particularly well. You had 1 win against Fulham that was far from convincing, but it wasn't a disaster. You lost at Brighton late on, and my God, you don't make a statement before you play Liverpool, a team that in recent years has beaten you 7-0, albeit it was at Anfield. But it's just fueling, as Maka said, it's fueling some journalists to ask questions. The board are sending backing you, and everybody's been, getting put in a position. It is early, and he has got time to turn it around, but the worrying signs are that it's kind of similar to what we saw last year. Yes, there are some new players in there. Some of them have to get bedded in. De Ligt needs some more game time. Mazraoui needs some more game time. Ugarte hasn't played. Zirkzee's had some 1 or 2 games, looked okay, missed a couple of chances. I didn't think he looked great on the ball, to be honest, with his hold-up play. But worryingly, some of the signs of the Man United of last year are still there, particularly the huge problems that they're having in the middle of the park. And signing one player in Ugarte is not just going to solve all of that. Oh, Ugarte's in, Casemiro's probably going to have limited game time because his legs are going, he's short of confidence, blah, blah, blah. all our ills are solved. It's not as easy as that. There's a way more. I mean, it's just you've got Ugarte, a young Kobe Mainu, and then where else are you going? Bruno Fernandes dropping in there. I mean, you look at Liverpool's midfield; it was quality. Yes, Gravenberch has taken time, and it still is very early, but he's shown signs of why Liverpool signed him. McAllister is a quality footballer, and Szoboszlai is a Rolls Royce in there. You look at that compared to United's midfield, even with the new signing, it's chalk and cheese. And that's where games are dominated.
The trouble is, Manchester United are still one of the biggest, if not the biggest club in English football. And you have this kind of desperation that you've seen over the last 2 years. And to Macca's point around Ten Hag, I think people are right to question Ten Hag, even as aggressively as they absolutely have. Now, last season, kind of given the season they had before and then the injuries, maybe you could make the excuse for giving him a pass, and the FA Cup adds to that. But then everything that's happened since, I don't think has done Ten Hag any favours. United looking for a new manager and then deciding we're going to stick with Ten Hag. They had a very decent transfer window. Not only Ugarte, they brought in Euro, okay, he gets injured. De Ligt, Mazraoui, Xerxes. It felt like Ten Hag was bringing in the players to address their issues. Yet what we've seen, certainly in the game against Liverpool, is more of the same. And now after enduring 12 months of Ten Hag being pretty consistent with his excuses, now he's trying to find something new to say. Because I don't think you can hide behind those excuses. Given the transfer window, given that you've been backed. So now he's relying on, well, 1-2 trophies. Because he can't keep selling that same story that he did last year. And as I've been saying for quite a few months, I just don't see how this does anybody any long-term good.
It's quite simple. The only thing that, no matter what Omar Berrada says or Dan Ashworth or anything, the only thing that buys him enough time is results. Mm-hmm. If somehow they were to come off the international break and lose the next 2 or 3 league games, I think it's unquestionable that the United board are going to have to make a very early season decision. Unquestionable. So he has to, and he hasn't got the strongest opponents to play against, but he just has to get results to stave off this constant questioning that he's getting. And if he doesn't get results, he's the manager of Manchester United. And if they do somehow, and I don't think they will, but if he was to lose the next 2 or 3 games and they were sitting almost near the foot of the table with what they've spent and who they are, I think his position is going to quickly become untenable.
Macca, we obviously saw Casemiro grab the headlines for all the wrong reasons after the first half performance that he put in. There's suggestions that they're trying to get him a move to Turkey, to Galatasaray. He's saying he will fight that. What's interesting is that Ugarte, of course, coming in, but what happens if he doesn't work, or what happens if he gets injured? That leaves Manchester United really down, doesn't it, to the bare bones? And I know Casemiro, we discussed it a lot, isn't the player that he was, obviously, a few years ago, but that leaves him incredibly vulnerable, doesn't it, in midfield, if he does go to Turkey?
Yeah, and everybody's expecting Ugarte to come in and be the saviour, this person who's, of course, he's only had a year at PSG, and anybody who watched PSG last year, certainly in the midfield area, will see that nobody, probably Vitinha was the only one who stood out. You know, even Fabian Ruiz, who had a lovely time in the Euros, who was amazing, didn't play well for PSG. So Ugarte coming in relatively cheap and leaving a year later for £50 million. As Craig said, who says he's going to come in there and be amazing? The main thing is that United need to have a plan of how to play, don't they? Anybody who watches United and has done for a number of years still, to this day, don't know how they play. Are they going to play out from the back? Are they going to, play through the pitch? Are they going to get it wide? Are they going to, be like Alex Ferguson's old team and have 2 wingers and 2 centre forwards? Nobody knows. It just seems to be get 11 players on the pitch and let's hope we get a result. And I think that's the bigger issue. Yes, Højlund's, injured and they can keep chirping on about that, but he never had the greatest first season last year. He has to improve tenfold. Rashford has to improve tenfold to be like the form that he showed a couple of years ago where he was outstanding. Garnacho needs to step up now in his relatively second year. and they need ball winners, and they need to be strong defensively in midfield. You can't rely on Kobe Mainoo. Absolutely not, as a 19-year-old. He's only a young boy still learning the game. You cannot rely on him. McTominay's gone, who did a good job when called upon. Mount injured. Eriksen's old. So, yes, they need Ugarte to come in and be an absolute superstar from the first minute. Otherwise, it's going to be back to the same old problems. They can't stop conceding goals.
Do you get rid of Casemiro, Shaq?
No. I think right now, Justin and Maka detailed it well, in that position, they're just too thin on the ground. The issue is, I don't trust, and don't get me wrong here, I think Casemiro has been one of the best players in his position in a generation. But he's at that stage now, particularly, while I like the idea of somebody with his experience alongside Kobe Mainoo, inexperience and coming through, I just feel against the better teams in the league, he will get found out. But it's a long old season. It's 38 league games, Champions League and Cups. I think there are opportunities there to rotate, to get Casemiro in, to provide that experience and opportunity for Kobe Mainoo. But that opportunity doesn't come against the Man Cities and the Arsenals and, dare I say, the Liverpools of the league.
He's got this marvellous thing called a contract.
Yeah, he's got 2 years left on his contract. It's it's like 300 grand, isn't it, a week?
I wouldn't imagine he's a man that is going to be pushed around if he doesn't want to do anything. And look, he's not going to play as badly as he did at the weekend going forward. He might not be able to do it week in, week out anymore at the highest level when the game's very quick. But as Shaq said, they're so thin on the ground. McTominay's at Napoli. They haven't got any. They're bringing a youngster in Collier, young boy. You know, so they haven't. It's a long old season for them. You know, they've got a lot of football to play. Whether they just couldn't give a stuff about that and think we just need to get the wages off. We wouldn't mind getting the wages off. That's a different matter.
Yeah.
But from a footballing perspective, then that is one of the positions, the middle of the park, where they are super thin on the ground. And of course, as you said, Ugarte could come in, might not play particularly well, might get injured. So could young Mainoo. What the hell were they going to do in the middle of the park? So I think they have to be careful in this scenario. They signed him in this long contract, and they may have to suck up the wages, even if he doesn't play every week from the start, particularly in the league.
You going to be all right tonight?
What do you mean?
Going to sleep tonight, you okay? With Scotland against Poland in the Nations League tomorrow. Will you be able to get... It's like Christmas Eve.
No, what you got, that's when I'm going to be sleeping. Because I'm telling you now, there's not a hope in hell I'm going to watch that.
We will be discussing that game on the next edition of ESPN FC.
I can't wait. I'm going to come in just for that.
I'll discuss the results.
Against Spain. Spain are playing as well, by the way.